Playing in a trio is not without precedent for Sting. He was in this little band called The Police, after all. But his Sting 3.0 tour, which began during the summer in Europe and opened its North American leg Tuesday night September 17 with the first of 2 shows at the Fillmore Detroit, has been a welcome return to the format after a good 16 years of touring with different and varyingly larger configurations. My inclination is always to try and surprise people in the songs I write or in the format I present the song, he told Billboard via Zoom from New York, between the 3.0 tour legs. I don't think anyone was expecting a trio. I've worked with these big 7, 8-piece bands, and it's a bit like driving a Bentley. It kind of drives itself, and it's comfortable. So I decided I would put myself out of my comfort zone in order to get something on the back end that wasn't guaranteed, a risk, if you like. I'm enjoying the challenge, and it's also fun looking. Watching the audience go, wow, there's only 3 people up there. We were expecting a bigger band and then enjoying the sonic clarity of it. Sting is joined in the endeavor by longtime guitarist Dominic Miller and drummer Chris Moss, a Luxembourg native who's previously worked with Mumford Sons, Maggie Rogers and the Pierces. And while Sting fessed up to being kind of anxious all the way up to the first show in Europe, he quickly shed any doubts he may have had, or, perhaps, any lingering PTSD from the legendary combativeness within the Police. Halfway through that first gig I realized this is exactly what I want to do, he said, explaining that, there's a space that you have been instruments, the clarity, the mutual listening between the members of the band, the risk factor, stripping the songs down to their basic essence and having them work. You take all the fat away, but the basic structure of the song is very satisfying. We've had a blast. There's no let up here. You can't cruise. You have to be right on the money the whole time. But the songs are holding up. The singer's holding up. And so, he added, is the player. I began to notice how good I am at singing and playing the bass, actually, he said with a chuckle. I've forgotten how well I did that. Nothing is impossible with a trio, I realize that, he added. And it's not as if I'm completely new to the format. But I am surprised at how adaptable the songs and the arrangements are. It's been so enjoyable. The couple of thousand or so fans in Detroit on Tuesday certainly shared Sting's exuberance, generating a give-and-take energy that sustained throughout the 20-song hour and 45-minute performance, and these unquestionable highlights from it. A nice balance. Not unusually, Sting and company did a fine job of combining the Police and his solo work. With 8 of the former's best-known songs in the setlist, including a ferocious rendition of Driven to Tears, topical messages flashing across the video screen to protest and react. Sting's Desert Rose, meanwhile, was sandwiched in the middle of a non-stop, main set closing segment that began with the Police's Walking on the Moon and So Lonely and finished with muscular arrangements of the synchronicity hits King of Pain and Every Breath You Take. A boatload of hits. Sting doesn't have to work hard to keep them coming, of course. Using a headset microphone and playing a few songs seated, he also delivered Police favorites such as the show opening Message in a Bottle and Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. An extended Can't Stand Losing You and a long, rhythmically shifting version of Roxanne. From the solo front, meanwhile, came If I Ever Lose My Faith in You, Shape of My Heart. All This Time and Englishman in New York. For the show ending Fragile, meanwhile, he put aside the bass and played acoustic guitar to send the crowd home quiet and thoughtful. Deep Cuts We Love. Sting Mine 1991's The Soul Cages 4, Made About You, and Why Should I Cry for You, both singles but not quite on a list status. From 2003's Sacred Love. Meanwhile, he plucked the solemn Never Coming Home, which he introduced as a musical note left by a woman as she was leaving her husband. The latter was also one of the night's instrumental highlights, as Sting and Miller closed with an arresting, jammy outro.